Yeah, so our project is called MiniCoDe, so it stands for Minimise Algorithmic Bias and Collaborative Decision Making with design fiction. So it's taking design fictions for fair and transparent food administration as an application area. So the target of our work was to kind of understand human values and kind of unconscious bias when it comes to the design of an introduction of algorithmic services, which is currently a trend within this area of food justice and distribution. So the project is co-led by University of Hertfordshire and Northumbria University, supported by Newcastle West End Foodbank as an application area, which is a food bank in Newcastle, and WeandAI as a partner as well. And it also targets to engage with stakeholders through the different workshops and communities of interest to develop the framework of values of what is considered value within this food bank administration process, and then kind of take that framework of values and use design fiction approach to develop a toolkit to enable the stakeholders to kind of explore these biases in the collaborative process and design a socio-technical system for fair food administration. So the team, so the team is comprised of Alessio, Malizia from University of Hertfordshire, who's going to be talking in a few minutes, Silvio, Carta from Hertfordshire as well, and Tanya Duarte from WeandAI. And from Northumbria University, it's me, Garry, Elvin, and Nanlin from Computer Information Science Department, and Newcastle West End Foodbank, represented by John McCurry. So the context of the food bank, we have already started working with them from previous work, and we kind of were able to understand the importance of how food banks play that essential social justice role in providing emergency food supplies to those who cannot meet the basic food needs. So, for example, the West End Food Bank in Newcastle was able to provide 35,000 people in need in the local community in 2018 and 19, and they can only imagine that there in 1920 with the pandemic is only going to be even worse based on the numbers that they have up to now. So with working with them, we were able to kind of co-design this research from the outset and indicated problems with the current food voucher system, like different issues, and they were also considered of different services and algorithmic introductions into who's making the decisions, who's making all of that, and that how it led to the project. We're able to map with previous work the network of how it works within the food bank, so where the volunteers are joining with the referral agencies are kind of taking that decision support into that, and where the actual food voucher applicant is joining into that. However, to kind of understand these kind of human considerations, especially for the algorithmic services, if you're going to be introducing that, is kind of crucial to address the values that exist within this context. And with increasing evidence of unfairness and bias, it kind of felt like a very good attempt to kind of set the map down before we proceed into implementing any actual technology within that. And using a co-design approach, we will going to be aiming to develop these framework values to inform the design of algorithmic services for kind of fair and transparent food administration. So identifying the values and areas of improvement for the decision making, what is value for the food voucher applicant, what is value for the the referral agent, what is being value for the volunteer at the food bank, and kind of recruit different individuals through the food voucher network to kind of formulate this kind of community of interest that will be supporting the project throughout the design, the different activities. We're going to be running workshops with this community of interest and inviting further technologies into those as the project is kind of progressing. And those will hopefully fit into the second part that Alessio is going to be explaining about the design fiction. Alessio?
Okay, I'll take over. I'll share my screen. I think I can do it. Yes. 1 second. All right. I think you can see my screen now. So yeah, just continuing on the same page in a sense. So we want to explore co-creation and co-design methods, and in particular, we want to try to use design fictions, especially to stimulate reflections on accountability, fairness, and transparency of decision-making algorithms. We've seen, on the news, lots of examples of those kinds of systems being unfair or with, sort of involving some kind of bias that wasn't expected. Many times because, of course, it's machine learning, so they're learning from a biased data set, but sometimes it's also the algorithm itself. Just to give you an example, a quarter of the population in Bristol have been processed by an algorithm recently. They score everybody up to 100, and they're even trying to predict which of the cities, like twins, like 11 to 12 years old, seem destined to a life that is called need, not employment, education, or training. And that is, I won't say Black Mirror-ish, but sort of kind of scary. At the same time, there might be implications for the society when you use those algorithms, especially part of this algorithm run by IBM was meant to measure a sort of credit score that could be used for social housing assignments. So it's kind of complicated. So the idea is to use design fiction as a method to try to have a highly inclusive group of people. So we will apply to food banks, but hopefully the output could be more general. So having a sort of a heterogeneous group of participants like engineers, social scientists, policymakers, citizens, people involved in the adoption of those systems and algorithms, and run design fictions to try to understand the implication at the same time or before deploying this technology in the society, trying to anticipate the potential benefits, but also the drawbacks. So design fiction itself is a method of critical design in which you basically create a fiction together with participants and build storyboards to try to envision possible future scenarios. So although, of course, when we talk about future scenarios, we mean sort of near future. You don't really apply this technique for trying to scope, sort of for a wide, sort of long time frame. Normally, there's a sort of a workshop, so that's more or less like participatory design or co-design types of workshops in which you work together with a heterogeneous group of people and sort of use co-creation and co-ideation techniques to help them shape a storyboard using their own knowledge and their own concern and their own information. You would enrich this information by use design cards. So here there are a couple of examples I've been using in the last few years. This is the Plex, which is very interesting to help them looking at the storyboards and reflect about like emotions, feelings, and like friendship, community, intimacy, fellowship. This other one is called The Thing from the Future. And it's about, it's another deck of cards that allows you to think about the temporal arc you're trying to design for or looking at implication for, and different other items like objects and terrain. But the whole idea really in this project is to try to democratize this technique. So instead of having a facilitator which has experience on these kinds of collaborative workshops, can we sort of make a toolkit that is available and open for people to use, and then to run those design fictions to reflect on implication and bias in the society when they use algorithmic or decision-making, automated decision-making solution. And of course, you can see the implication for food banks. So just to give you my final slide, to give you an example what we mean by that, this is an example of started working a little bit on this, for instance, reflecting on social impact. And whenever you're actually going to apply this algorithm or this decision-making system, at which scale you can have implication. Can you reflect, for instance, on major consequences for a small number of people, or minor consequences for a big number of people? And here there are some examples, like, you know, thinking about minor consequences for a big number of people. We've seen recently the so-called prime lining scandal from Amazon that actually was made initially prime available in the US only in certain area with certain postcodes. And for instance, African-American residential areas that were even at the border, so on the other side of the road, but with a different postcode, were excluded. And then of course, Amazon eventually realized and sort of changed policy. And this is what we would like to elicit with this design fictions for food banks and algorithmic social justice. And that's all.